Hi, welcome to the Purpose Beyond Motherhood podcast. My name is Nicole Clark, and I am here with my amazing co host, Holly Perkowski. Hey, Holly.
Hi, how are you?
So good. This just one, you guys. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you so much for joining us. And if you are a repeat listener, we appreciate you. You are our people. Thank you so much for just supporting us in 1212 Ministries. We are so grateful. So, really quickly before we jump in, I just want to let you guys know so you can mark it on your calendar. This
Yes.
podcast, we release an episode on the third Monday of every single month. So, mark your calendars, save the date so you can be ready for our next episode. And we are so excited for our guest today. Hey, Bailey.
Hi.
Okay, so Bailey can do a much better job at introducing herself than I can. But you guys, I was connected to Bailey just through another ministry partner, Storytellers Live, and she shared her story on their podcast and just mentioned to me like, hey, she has a wonderful heart, she loves the Lord, loves God's daughters, and your audience needs to hear her and hear her heart. And so I was like, yes, absolutely. And so we've had to reschedule our call a time or two. And so like it's happening. We're so excited to chat with you. But Bailey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you.
Mhm.
Like, who is Bailey?
Um, Girl, when we find out, I'll let you know. I feel like it's a constant struggle. Don't spit your coffee
I
out.
know. I almost spit my coffee out. I love you.
um, I am a walking work in progress. I think I just went back to work in April, but 2 years before that, I was working for myself, promoting my book, events, podcast, miscarriage guide, doing some speaking engagements. So I guess my elevator pitch is I'm Bailey Henry. I'm an author, speaker, and what I call myself an accidental women's health advocate because I never ever thought this would be my platform. Before I wrote a book and did all these things, I worked in the marketing and publishing world. So to be having conversations about women's health, about infertility, which is the most painful, shameful thing that I've ever had to carry, it's still really weird. I've been doing this for a while now, but I'm like, I talk about some really intimate stuff on Instagram. Should I stop doing that? I don't know. So it's a
No,
constant,
yeah.
yeah, it's a constant learning game. So but I live in the Jackson, Mississippi area with my husband and my 4-year-old son. I have a love-hate relationship with our dog. Um, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Thanks
How
for
long
sharing
have
that with
you
us.
how long have you been married?
We will be married 8 years next week.
Okay. Congratulations in advance.
Thanks. We made it through the 7-year itch.
Yes. Yes, you did. Okay, so how many years of infertility when you were like knowingly aware that you were battling it did you guys walk through?
That's such a hard question because I was in denial for a little bit. Um, I had my first miscarriage in October 2017,
Okay.
and I we weren't and I say this really delicately most times because I know that getting pregnant for women is half the battle. I get pregnant super easily. I just cannot sustain the pregnancy. So when we became pregnant the first time, excuse me, it was a huge shock, and I wasn't super thrilled. Which feels so guilty to me now because I'm like, it's that women's self judgment, self hatred. It's like if I'm never going to be able to carry a child to full term, I got to enjoy every single second, every day that I get with these little nuggets. So I wasn't super excited. My husband was very excited. I was pregnant just for about a week in my first pregnancy before I started to miscarry. I think I had 3 miscarriages before I would even say the word infertility. So really, I don't know how to answer that question. 2017, still have yet to carry a healthy child to full term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You're a tough cookie, girl.
Oh, I really appreciate that. I feel very fragile right now because we are on a ton of progesterone at the moment. So the
Oh,
emotions are raging, the hot flashes,
it's the worst.
and we're in the middle of a drought, and it's been like 3-digit temps. We're just having so much fun over
Uh-huh.
here.
The like water weight aspect of progesterone is what I always forget. And then it comes and I'm like, what's happening? Don't get on the scale. Just don't do it.
Yeah. Whoo, you just spoke to like the deepest part of my journey right now because I keep looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I mean, we had fun this summer. It was my son's birthday. I made 2 cakes. Why did I make 2 cakes? I don't know. I just felt like it. So there was 2 birthday cakes. We've enjoyed ourselves, but I'm like, I still go for walks and I still try to work out and it's just everywhere.
Yes.
Sausage fingers were just everywhere.
I understand. You're not alone. I understand that.
Right.
Completely.
Yes. I was like, Holly, yes, you're not alone.
No,
For
you are
real.
not. And I feel like no one wants to tell you because mine was through IVF, but still it was like I forgot. I'd like blocked out all of the things. But and I think the Lord wires us to forget. So we try again
Yeah. Yeah.
every time. It's crazy.
Bailey, I would love for you to share a little bit about your son.
Oh, my baby. He's 4. He's very good at being 4. His name is Samuel. Um, and adoption was one of those things I was terrified of. It was if I could explain adoption before it touched our family, because when you start to have infertility, I love it when people say this, just adopt. Just use a surrogate as if it's not just as expensive or has just as many emotional repercussions as IVF or IUI. Like it seems so simple, to other people. And to me, just adopting would be like standing in front of an 18 wheeler and having him like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know that's a graphic image, but that's how terrified I was of adoption. Um, we still haven't revealed parts of his story of how he came to us. But I will tell you that God is in the details and that kid was made for us. Like the way that he came into our home, the timing of it, I will tell you. I had my 6th miscarriage in May of 21. And 3 weeks later, to the day, almost down to the hour, our son moved home. I was still
Man.
swollen and bleeding, and I had my 2nd trimester boobies still. Those were fantastic. And I was just absolutely in fight or flight. And then this little 1-year-old chicken nugget comes waddling through my door. And I'm like, "Hi, are you are you who I've been waiting for?" And he was. The Lord was so gentle and had given me the sweetest visions of a little boy in footed pajamas running around our house. And, I will tell you that so arrogantly and irreverently, the Lord kept pushing adoption to me and my husband. We would have dreams about it. Other people would talk about it. I looked up one day and I had so many close friends who'd been touched by adoption, who'd adopted their kids or they were adopted when they were children. And because I was thinking like, well, I don't have any resources. I don't know where to get started. And then I just looked up and the Lord was like, here's really special friends who are going to help you walk through this. Um, but in my prayers, I think I've explained this before. Like the Lord kept pushing a piece of paper across the table to me in these visions, and I just would push it away. And my biggest selfish question was, how on earth can I love a child that did not come from my bones? How am I going to connect with a child who doesn't look like us, who doesn't maybe resemble my husband or me, or I don't have a connection with them? How am I going to do that when I look at their face if I see a stranger? And the Lord, I've never, ever, ever heard the Lord's voice more clearly when he looked at me and or spoke to my heart and said, "What if when you look at that child, you see me instead
Ooh, yeah.
and not," and that's better than seeing my big forehead or my husband's eyes any day of the week. So it's just been a beautiful undoing of fleshly wants and having this kid who is just the greatest gift I've ever known. And now I'm a huge champion of adoption. Once it touches your family, you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. This is really beautiful. And there's nothing to be afraid of. It is hard. It is, any type of parenting is hard.
Yeah.
Adoption is hard. Um, but he's absolutely fantastic. He is a miracle. And yeah, he's just amazing.
That's incredible.
Beautiful. Yeah. So beautiful.
I love that.
Bailey, I would love for you to kind of pick out, just because you talked about the unraveling of your flesh, and so what was maybe a few like practical things that you did, because I feel like maybe a woman is listening and she's just like, oh man, I'm just operating in my flesh right now. How can I release this to the Lord? Like, where do
Oh,
I even start?
I feel like I'm the worst example right now to answer that question, but it's just, you can dance with the Lord. He can handle it. You can have this ebb and flow of clinging to things that you want so desperately. He's such a gentle parent. I have never understood the love and the graciousness of God like I do now when I became a mother. He's such a good father. And he's so gentle and so patient. But I am still unraveling my fleshly desires for things. And I'll be honest with you, like in my grief for infertility, y'all, I ran to the most fun stuff. I'm like, well, if I can't have a baby, we're going to have extra glasses of wine and mimosas, and we're going to jack my forehead up with the Botox because I'm not pregnant. So who cares? And we're just gonna like, we're lucky I didn't run off and get a tattoo. Like we went a little nuts for a minute. Um,
No judgment.
thank you.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to share this soon on social media. Like all the things that my fleshly desires ran to in my grief, I am slowly running away from now in the effort to try to have another child. And I'm giving those empty hands of like, okay, I was so proud and I clung to everything so much. Like, okay, God, here's my skincare routine. Here is here's my happy hour. Here is, I love to smell good, and that's going off on like a different tangent, but in the fertility world, all the chemicals and it messes with your hormones and the endocrine disruptors, and I haven't worn perfume in a year and I miss it terribly. So I'm like rubbing peppermint oil all over myself to like smell good. uh, you know. Um so it's just the stripping down of the things that you think make you feel better, and they do in the moment. Um, but there's not much that can make you feel as whole as walking hand in hand with the Holy Spirit, even if you're cursing, even if you're mad, even if you're bringing a lot of baggage with you. The stripping down is hard, and I'm still there.
Yes. I feel like that's just a daily, I feel like in every stage of life, somehow what I went through with infertility like pops its head back up in like situations that are hard to navigate. The Lord will be like, well, remember this? And I'm like, yes, I do remember this. But it's just a very humbling, and I like had a visual of like the Lord just unraveling like pieces of fabric. And I feel like at each level, he pulls out another part of his character that we didn't know. We were kind of like pushed in a corner to discover. Not that we willingly wanted to learn that way, but I do feel like you learn such different parts of his heart for his daughters through this. And it's painful, but I do feel like we learn so much because we're kind of forced to.
We do. And I love how Nicole phrased that. I can't remember if we were recording or praying before, but just the hearts of the Lord's daughters. Like I love, love, love women so much. And one of my most favorite things that I love about us is how complex we are. And the Lord favors us anyway, because we are some complex, complicated creatures. And I just can't get enough of it. I think it's wonderful because He still will find a way to meet us where we are. And it's the undoing is so much fun at the end. At the end, when we when we see His plan revealed, it's so
Yes.
much fun at the end. But like in the beginning, it's a bit rough. But yes, I agree. We're just that beautiful image of like undoing fabric, and there's something so delicate in each part of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I want to talk about I learned this new word. It's my favorite new word is co-vocational, right? Okay. I know. Okay, I have to give a shout out to She Works His Way. That I heard it on their podcast and I'm like I'm all about it cuz I believe I am co-vocational. I'm being a toddler about it right now, but I am co-vocational. And Bailey, I feel like you are too. And so I want to talk about like your puzzle pieces and just like
Oh,
how the Lord used your gifts and your talents, right? To because you said you were in marketing and publishing and you were able to use those gifts to provide that like that purpose beyond motherhood. You were able to bless the infertility, miscarriage, pregnancy loss communities like with your gifts. And I just think that's so awesome, so beautiful. And just like, please share all the things, you know.
oh my goodness. What a compliment. Co-vocational. I'm going to have to write that down. Yeah, so I worked for a home and garden magazine. I've always kind of landed in that area. I love interior design. I work for an interior designer now. I love that world. And I had my first two or three miscarriages while I was working for the magazine. And then it, I don't want to like it is the word haunt comes to mind. Like this thing kept haunting me. And every moment when I woke up, it was like, you got to do this thing. You have to do this thing. Or if I had any kind of downtime or driving in the car, these entire pages of my journals would just come to me. And I went to my husband one day and I said, I think I need to write a book. And he was like, okay, that seems like kind of a big feat. Do you want to talk about it first? And I'm like, no, not really. I'm just going to like, I'm going to do it. Thank you. Thank you for coming to my talk. This is how this is going to go. Um, and so I just went head first and listened to that inner pull and that calling and really compiled my journals of infertility into this. It's called Having a Baby and Other Things I'm Bad at. Notice the wine on the cover.
Well,
um, and so I just went for it, and I knew how the publishing world worked. Book publishing is quite different, but I knew enough to get started. And so, and again, I just had all these friends around me who were English teachers or researchers, and they knew, like, they helped me edit and they did polls with me. We did a ton of research. The cover of my book, I came up with, like, I work really fast. Like, if I have an idea, we go for it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But like, it has to come out of me as soon as possible. So I wrote my book. Here's another fun God fact in 6 months. Mhm.
dang.
I had because the further we went on, that voice and that inner pull just kept getting stronger and louder and deeper. And I went to my husband one day, or really he came to me and he's like, "You're rushing. Like, why are you rushing through this? This is a great time. What if you never get to write a book again? You really need to enjoy this process." And I turned to him with like crazy eyes and I said, "I don't think you understand. I have to do this. I have to get this out of me as soon as possible because we will be parents within a year." Like, I knew that our son was coming. And something inside of me was like, you have to get this behind you. Cause turns out it's like super hard to have a hobby with kids. And it's super hard to like get stuff done for yourself when you have children.
Mhm.
Yep.
So,
Amen.
I just went for it. And it was almost like the book for me was this thread. And once I pulled it out, everything unraveled, like in the best, most purposeful, God driven way. The book came out, and then I connected with someone on Instagram, and then we started a podcast for 3 seasons. And then my miscarriage guide got picked up by a lot of news outlets, and I was on the local news. Well, I didn't know how local news worked. I thought I was just going to be like on the news in the Jackson market. And then it got picked up in like Philadelphia and Los Angeles and New Jersey and Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm just like, what is happening? Um, I feel like I'm rambling and I'm not answering your question, but
No, this is great. Yes.
the co-vocational aspect of that is doing one thing that I could not escape. It was so it was like God's big finger was just like pointing, like, do this thing, do this thing. And then I did it with zero money. I cannot emphasize that enough. Zero money, a lot of faith. And then it was just like this big bubble burst. And it was like, well, here, do this thing. And then here, do this thing. And then my Instagram sort of became like this constant journal for me and other women, which has been rewarding in the sweetest but hardest way. I went back because I'm a freak, and I counted. I think over the last 3 years, I've answered close to 600 DMs from women who, and it's not, people use that word influencer. I don't consider myself an influencer. Um, I I wish it was for like, hey, what's the link to your sunglasses? I wish that was the majority of DMs that I get, but it's all very much like my husband and I can't even look at each other after our miscarriage, or my doctor blames me for my infertility because I'm plus size, or my nurse wouldn't look at me in the eye after she told me my baby didn't have a heartbeat, and I felt so pushed to the side. Like, it's such heavy, heavy stuff. But I am honored that people trust me to tell me that stuff. And it's, it really has become a purpose, like co-vocational, yes, but also like this is this is my thing, and I love my thing.
That's amazing. Okay, can you tell our listeners where they can get your book and your miscarriage guide and all of those things?
The book is on Amazon. The miscarriage guide is on my website, which is hellobaileyhenry.com. There is like a printable PDF version, because when I have them like in real life, it's like a 5x7 postcard that I just pass out like candy. Um, but then there's also like the blog, The Miscarriage Guide, which goes into why I wrote it.
Okay. That's amazing. I love that you did that. And I love that you said before we started recording, you said I'm a women's health advocate. It's not like medical advice necessarily, but it's just to help them walk through that really difficult season.
Yeah, definitely not medical advice at all. I have to be careful with that.
Yes. I wanted to make sure we included that so that people be crazy these days too.
That's true. That is true.
Bailey, thank you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
guys so
Like,
much
thank
for
you for the
having me.
work. Yeah, I was going to say just thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for just your heart for this community. Um, yeah, we're so grateful for what you're doing. I think, before we wrap up, just any last words to our listeners, just if it's that one woman who is just like, I've had it, I'm, have really lost hope and her heart is just broken and she just can't see the Lord in this current season. What would you just share with her?
You're gonna make me cry. So first of all, I wrote about this in my book, and I've talked about this a ton on my Instagram page. It's okay to break something so you do not break yourself. in those deep, deep pits of grief. I cannot tell you how many bowls I have broken in my kitchen. Um, how many just things that I've just snapped in half. Women's anger, righteous anger, is so needed sometimes. And I think we're told to be, nowhere in Proverbs 31 does it say anything about us getting angry. And that's maybe they just left that part out. Um, but women's anger is often really overlooked. So that's the first thing that I would say is you find anything, go to one of those rage rooms and you just break anything so you do not break yourself. And it is absolutely okay to take a baseball bat to an old computer in your garage and then have your precious husband help you pick up the pieces. That is just an example.
That's
Um,
very good.
one thing that may or may not have happened at the Henry household. Um, and then I would also say I cannot escape lately the story of Elijah and the translation. I just listened to a podcast yesterday. He's not in the earthquake, he's not in the wind, he's not in the fire, he's in that still small whisper. But what I've recently learned is that in the original Greek translation, the word that we've now used for whisper is sheer silence. So God in the original Hebrew, he is in the silence. When you do not hear him or feel him, it's when he's absolutely the closest. And it feels like the most cruel and confusing thing because I am still very much in my walk. Please give me the fire tower. Please give me the earthquake. I need you to be big. I need you to be flashy because I'm too busy and stupid to know the difference. So you need to make it really obvious to me. But when he is the most silent, he is just closer than a whisper. And that is the harshest part of being a Christ follower. Nowhere did it ever say, certainly for women going through infertility, this is going to be the easy way, um, or the most comfortable way. And so I just can't get away from that story of Elijah. Um, and it's just the sweetness and sitting in that still sheer silence might take a minute, but you'll feel him.
That is so good. I love that.
That was beautiful.
Thanks, guys. This was
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you so much.
We appreciate you so much and just what you're doing for women. It's amazing.
Thank you guys for having me. This was fun.
Are we good? You want me to stop?
So